Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Van Frank, and I am the Executive Director of the Fire Foundation of Denver. And just wanted to thank you for coming and joining, watching this programming, and to thank Christie Bonfiglio from the University of Notre Dame, as well as Kristen Lanier, Luann Bartoletta, Eileen Hanashevsky, and Isabel Teixeira, teachers and staff here in the Archdiocese of Denver, who are students and graduates of Notre Dame's PI program. So just a little bit about the Fire Foundation of Denver. We are a funding and advocacy organization here in the Archdiocese that provides grants to local Catholic schools to support inclusive education programs for our children here in the Archdiocese. So I'm going to pass it off to Kristen. Just want to thank you all again for being here, sharing your time, and telling a little bit about Notre Dame, the PI program, and all they have to offer. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. So yes, my name is Kristen Lanier, and I am serving currently as the Director of Student Support Services for the Archdiocese of Denver Office of Catholic Schools. In that role, I get the extreme joy of getting out into our schools, seeing what's happening as it relates to the service of students with exceptionalities and how we can kind of build that offering. So in partnership with the Fire Foundation, we are creating some training opportunities for our teachers and feel like PI is a wonderful opportunity for our teachers to engage in just some additional learning as it relates to the support of our exceptional learners. So with that, we are so excited to bring some PI participants, both past and present, to the table today, as well as to welcome Christie to share with us a little bit more about PI. So without further ado, Christie Bonfiglio, Executive Director of the PI program at the University of Notre Dame.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a blessing to be here. I've done some past work with the Archdiocese of Denver, and I'm doing a lot of work with Fire Friends. So I'm just grateful to be here. I actually prepared some slides so that you would have a visual along with the auditory. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see these slides, and we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So thumbs up, you can see? Wonderful. All right. So per the introduction, my name is Christie Bonfiglio, and I am from the University of Notre Dame. I was hired originally as the director of the Office of Professional Standards and Accreditation, a fancy way of saying I kept the lights on and the doors open for our academic programs with accreditation. But then was asked to re-envision what we were doing for students with more diverse needs. We had a program called Teaching Exceptional Children back in the day when I joined the university, but figured that it was time for us to re-envision what that looked like. And so about 9 years ago, we launched the program for inclusive education, or PI as we like to call it. And we sought to be able to reach out to schools, to educators, to provide them knowledge, skills, dispositions, a culture for the school that would be more inclusive in educating students with different abilities. So I serve at Notre Dame as a faculty member, as a researcher. I am doing some national consultancy, but I was originally trained as a school psychologist, and not your typical test and place psychologist. I'm a psychologist that's in the trenches, and I still continue to travel the country working with Catholic schools in classrooms, trying to identify needs and supporting teachers and students with both academic and behavioral interventions. So what is it that PI is, and what do we do? Well, we're founded on a belief that we believe that Catholic schools are called. We're called to serve justly, inclusively, for all students, so that we celebrate the God-given potential. And so it became PI's mission to prepare educators. We believe there's a lot of heart out there for opening doors, but schools constantly tell us that there's a lack of knowledge and skills. And so we believe our mission is to prepare educators in schools to teach and to welcome students of all ability levels, regardless of their need. So just a little bit about what we're seeing across the country. There's a huge need for inclusive education. We know that depending on the research that you look at, anywhere between 13 and 15% of students are identified as students of need, and they are receiving services under IDEA, that public school law that says they're entitled to individualized education. In Catholic schools, the most recent data are telling us that about 7% are diagnosed and receiving service. So we're seeing a discrepancy, but the one thing we do know is that about 1 in 5 students whether that be public schools and or our Catholic schools, have a student with a learning disability of some sort. So about 20% of our kids have LD. And I think the most important data piece that we collected in a survey back in 2019 was the fact that we know the needs there. We know the pandemic has exacerbated needs when it comes to learning, behavior, social, emotional, executive functioning. But 90% of dioceses are reporting a limited capacity to meet those needs. Schools just don't know how. And therefore, the program of inclusive education, PI, was launched, and we are thinking about how we can best support schools through an integrated model, where we look at tiered systems of support, wherein we think of the whole child, not just an academic track or a behavioral track, but also those soft skills and the spiritual pillar as well, where we provide skill sets and knowledge on empirically based practices. We want to make sure that what you're doing in schools is evidence-based. And I'm sure our PI participants can say if they've heard EBP one time, they've heard it 1,000 times. We're about promoting what we know works. And furthermore, we couldn't do any of that if it wasn't founded on our faith, which in turn helps us to develop an inclusive culture. So it's really about this philosophy that PI has established to be able to meet the needs of Catholic schools and how we have thought broadly about our own programming at the University of Notre Dame. So as we talk a little bit about PI, not only is PI founded on these 3 pillars, but the Alliance for Catholic Education, where that's our home at the University of Notre Dame, they are also founded on these 3 pillars. We are intentional about ensuring that we're forming professional educators, that is giving you knowledge and skills, and doing it in a way that is helpful in your classrooms and in your schools. But we've also been really intentional on building community and ensuring that we grow spiritually within a cohort model. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these as we continue. But I would say that we have founded all of our professional learning opportunities on these 3 pillars. And so, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you the spectrum of things that we currently offer when it comes to professional learning, but also the conversations we're having for future programming. So we have an 18 credit hour licensure program where our friends are joining us from. We also provide some professional development. We have online and virtual training modules, and then we do have some resources for schools. So I'm going to just do a little dive into each of these so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. So our 18 credit hour additional licensure program, that is for educators who want to add a license. Now, let me preface it by saying, if you don't have a license, that doesn't mean you can't be a part of the program. We believe that for folks who want a license, they are entitled to apply for it. But if we are looking at educators, whether that be teachers, administrators, folks from the diocesan office, if you want the content and you want to be able to share that so that you can build inclusive programs, you are certainly welcome. But for those students who are getting the licensure program, it is available, and we do have some reciprocity. It's a 4-semester online, mostly online, but hybrid program wherein we start online with some foundational courses in inclusion as well as some critical elements. There is a spring online course then, a fall online course, then a spring online course wherein we have activities and we have data collection and strategy implementation that is occurring right in your classrooms. So you're using your own students to collect data and to practice some of the skills that we're giving you. And all of that comes as we're building that community through professional learning communities for academics, but also something that we're calling PI peace communities, which are these communities where they get together with a post-PI completer and they are working on spiritual formation and building community and solving problems about what's happening in their school. So we have been intentional about once a month getting the same professional learning community involved as a peace community to have some time together. all of that builds for this capstone that we house on the University of Notre Dame's campus in the second summer. So summer 2, we have a mini online class followed by a about 10-day experience on campus that is fun-filled, that is spiritual, that is community building, but also has a lot of academic rigor, all within about 10 days, where we come together more like a reunion than a first face-to-face meeting, but come together to kind of finish our learning together. And we have lots of great Notre Dame things that happen, but we also have some really foundational spiritual things, including a missioning mass to send forth our inclusive educators as they go to change the face of inclusion in Catholic schools. So that's our 18 credit hour coursework. I couldn't do this alone. We have beautiful national experts that have joined us from across the country. Sean Smith from Kansas, Michael Fagella-Luby from the Texas Christian University. He was the only ACE grad, ACE 5, that went on to get a doctoral degree in special education. Until now, we have another one going through the pike. But we are just so blessed to have Michael. And then this year, folks were introduced to Dr. Amber Ray, who is joining us from the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and she brings with her a wealth of knowledge and skills. And so we're just grateful to have a really well-rounded team supporting our candidates. So we have these national experts, and I know folks are wondering, so what does it cost? Pi 8's tuition is going to cost, with room and board, it's going to cost $10,200. So $10,200, but it's valued at $12,200. Every educator gets a Pi scholarship, which is applied to the very last semester when you're on campus because of that room and board expense as well. But I want to let folks know that there are lots of additional opportunities for funding. We accept title funding. There are educators who have gotten sponsorships. Pi does have a little bit of needs-based scholarship dollars where folks can apply to get some additional funding. We have had folks get fire scholarships across time. So there are lots and lots of ways that folks kind of piece their tuition and room and board together. Not very many people pay full cost, and anybody who typically applies for something gets some additional support. All right, so as I mentioned, it is an additional licensure program. It is in mild intervention, exceptional needs in the state of Indiana, but fear not, we have reciprocity with about 40 additional states. And that doesn't mean you automatically get a license, but there are minimal efforts that have to go into transferring that Indiana license over to your state, the state of Colorado. Okay, Pi 8 applications are open. Abby Giroux is my associate director, and she is here to answer any questions you might have. So I've given you the website, and we're going to circle back around to that website. So stay tuned. So professional development is kind of our second portion of professional learning across this umbrella. Professional development, we have been all across the country from coast to coast. We have done on-site workshops, 1 day, 2 days. We certainly like to pair an on-site workshop with something else because we believe that continuous learning across time is the best to make change. And so not only do we have these on-site workshops, but we do have a series of online modules that are created across multiple topics, and that bank of topics is growing. We also do some virtual consultations. So we're doing some training either virtually, especially after we've been on site. So in our faculty meeting, we're happy to hop in with some new content. We're happy to consult. We also have, we've started something new this year, and we've called it inclusive support. I think most schools, both public and private, would see this as instructional coaching, but we've done it from our own lens. And so we're trying to make sure that we're able to support, and of course, our focus has been on how do we support teachers to be better inclusively. So we have 18 credit hour, we have professional learning opportunities, and then I would be remiss if I didn't share some of our inclusive resources as well. So when it comes to resources, we have been doing blogs for a number of years, and our website, you can feel free to go there. They are all on the website, even the past topics. So we have done blogs, monthly blogs across time. Michael, Sean, and I, those national experts, we actually co-edited and authored this special issue in the Journal of Catholic Education on inclusion in Catholic schools. You can feel free to take a peek at that. It's an entire journal, an issue that is completely focused on inclusion. We're very proud of that. And believe it or not, we did it in 2020, and it needs more work because things are changing, and we'd love to contribute to the research moving forward as well. We also have some free resources, everything online. It's just a click away. One of my favorites is called Insights for Inclusion Better Than Pinterest. I love this resource that Michael, Sean, and I created, only in that it is a series of websites that takes you right to best practices, those evidence-based practices, and it's divided according to categories. So writing or behavior or communication, you're able to go there and click on the links, and it takes you to practices that you can find. We would highly recommend that you go to evidence-based practices and kind of stay away from that Pinterest website. There are probably beautiful EBPs on there, but you have to have a critical eye and know where to find them. So aside from some resources, we have a series of webinars that we have done across time. It was a monthly webinar that we did for about 18 months called A Little Slice of Pie, where we talked a little bit about the content of our blogs and had guest speakers. And our newest resource, friends, we have just launched in the 2023-24 academic year, we have launched Highlights for Inclusion. And this year, for the entire year, we have taken up student engagement. And we are approaching student engagement with strategies and resources and some statistics and a little bit of literature and links to other things. But we're taking that from a different vantage point. So we have already tackled what is student engagement. December, it's going out next week, is actually tackling sensory integration and how does that processing really affect engagement and what can we do. So you can take a peek at that beginning next Monday. We're going to tackle attention next month. So Highlights for Inclusion is going to be a consistent focus on student engagement. We've given you a graphic organizer, another EBP. So we've given you that graphic organizer to kind of take the content each month and organize it for yourself. So lots and lots of resources. Everything is on our website. So as you consider the program for inclusive education, which is big and broad, we have many, many professional learning opportunities. And Abby is happy to take your questions about the 18 credit hour program if you're thinking about applying. I would be happy to answer any questions and consult with you if you're thinking about some of those other professional learning options, especially some online PD. I've given you my contact information, the website, and I've provided that QR code for you, which takes you to our website so that you can just kind of peek around, get to us one way or another. And I just want to end by saying I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We would love to partner with folks out in the Denver area. And I just want to close with a series of a couple photos, not only to get my current PI participants a little excited about what's yet to come in July, but also for Isabel to kind of reminisce about some of the things on our campus. So in July, we will be welcoming Pi 7 to campus for that 10-day experience, and I cannot wait to have you there so that you can see some of this and experience the place that, our mother's campus that we love so much. And so we will be spending 10 days doing some academic work, of course, and participating in activities with some guests that come to campus, as well as our national experts. But we will be having a lot of fun. Past cohorts have had a little fun at the stadium. We've actually baked some cookies with FJ or Father Joe. He's a priest with ACE, and then just spending good time in community. So the second pillar. And finally, we do spend a lot of time in our beautiful grotto in the Basilica, as well as this cabin in the upper left-hand corner where we start with spiritual retreat. The first thing we do when folks get to campus, it's our way of launching and really reminding us why we're here, and that's to welcome and serve and celebrate all students. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our friends with Fire as well as the Archdiocese.
Thank you, Christie, so much for taking us through that. I really enjoyed, even personally, just getting to know the expansiveness of Pi and all the amazing things you all are doing. Thank you for being such a leading voice in this effort to educate all of God's children in his schools. Thank you. I want to pass it off first to Kristen Lanier in the Office of Catholic Schools here in the Archdiocese, as well as our other folks here on the call, to just share some brief testimonials about their experience in the Pi program, to hear from some folks getting the wonderful education and opportunities Christie just described.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Christie. What a gift it is to see this program come out of the University of Notre Dame in service of our students within our Catholic schools. And I think that that's what I want to highlight the most prevalently here, is that I have a master's in special education, and it was a wonderful program. However, the nuances as it relates to our Catholic schools and what's happening within our Catholic schools are profound. And as it relates to the programming that's coming out of Pi, we really address all of those needs. We talk about the nuance that happens within our buildings, and then we bring faith to the forefront, which is also a huge gift to be able to recognize the why of our service to exceptional learners. So those are kind of the big takeaways from an administrative perspective. Diving back into some of the coursework and just kind of refamiliarizing myself with some of the strategies, the ideas, and then, as we all know, education is an ever-evolving field, and so just kind of keeping ourselves new and fresh. I really recommend all of the experiences that I've had with Pi, and again, really want to stress the collaborative element. I think that sometimes there is, just due to a lack of time, a lack of ability to collaborate with fellow educators. And so to be able to walk through this program, keeping faith at the forefront, the service of our exceptional learners at the forefront, but also keeping collaboration at the forefront, has been really a gift, to talk through strategies, to talk through ideas with fellow educators, fellow administrators, fellow resource teams, has been a real awesome benefit to the work that we do. So in that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Luann Bartoletta, and Luann is going to share a little bit about her experience with Pi from a high school perspective.
Thank you so much, Kristen. So great to be here today. I teach at Holy Family High School in Broomfield, and I work with students in the Learning Services Department in grades 9 through 12. And I think my biggest takeaways and my greatest experience from Pi, I'll start with the biggest takeaways. Since beginning the first part of Pi and the cohort, I've learned that even at the high school level, universal design for learning is not only helpful for our most struggling students, but it is really helpful and very applicable to all of our high school students. UDL can be implemented and utilized in all of their academic classes, which will allow us as teachers to meet them at their learning levels. It's really all about providing the options and choices for all of our students. So whether it is a test or a project, we're now offering all of our students many ways to hone in on their strengths through the different modalities of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic options. We're trying to move away from the traditional Scantron and objective book tests, and we're becoming more creative as teachers with our students. Additionally, when choosing a capstone project this past summer for our class on Foundations of Inclusive Education, Dr. Bonfiglio gave our class a series of options. She said we could do a poem, a song, a children's book. These are just some examples. And if we didn't see a choice that we wanted to pursue, I love that she allowed us to come up with a creative one of our own. So to culminate with that, choices and options are key for us as adults, but this is even more paramount for students at the high school level. And I just found out today that I'm confident that we're doing our job at our school for inclusive education and UDL, because our Brit Lit teacher just gave some options to our students that I'd love to share with you. Instead of just doing an essay or a multiple choice final exam, these are some of the awesome options that she's given to our students. They could do a soundtrack, an author interview, a film review, a Netflix series, a scrapbook, or they can actually get into character. And of course, it's all following a rubric, but just such awesome examples of how I know we're doing what we need to be doing with our students. Quick experience thus far with PI. I've really appreciated the support that I've felt from our director of the program, Dr. Bonfiglio, as well as from my professors and the TAs. I also really love the support and collaboration of my PLC group. And the PLC, as Kristen shared, and I think Christie shared also, stands for Professional Learning Community. And here we formed at the beginning of the summer where we started with PI. It's so nice being paired with these ladies. I work with two other ladies, one from Michigan, one from Georgia. And in the summer, we completed the second capstone project together. And we're currently working on giving each other support and advice as we complete this third capstone for our literacy method and assessment class. They've been invaluable experiences to PI to date. And now I'm going to turn it over to, I think we're going to Eileen.
Great. Thanks, Luann. My name is Eileen Hanaszewski. I am the Director of Special Education and Resource at St. Mary Littleton K-8 school. I guess the best way that I can describe PI is sort of through my own image in my head of when I started in this position. St. Mary's had begun sort of the process a little bit of thinking about maybe supporting kids with special needs, but not like anyone with too many, they had all these parameters around it. So I sort of picture it as like there were like puddles of a cement foundation that was like laid around, but nothing was really solid or built upon it. And PI has really given us a firm foundation with those evidence-based practices in looking at universal design for learning. We've done a lot of work with response to intervention and MTSS, and I feel like PI, all of the research and work that I've done through the program, and then also with the support of Kristen, I'd be remiss without giving her a shout out. I don't think that we would have a legitimate special education program without PI. Another beautiful piece of this program is the community with the PLC. So in this work, it can be isolating. I'm the only special educator in my building. I think I'm maybe one of the only special educators in the southwest part of Denver. So all on an island by myself. And it's been really lovely to reach out to other people who are having or have had the exact same experiences as I have in different corners of the country. Another beautiful part of PI is that spirituality piece. So we meet a minimum of once a month with our peace community. And one of the most recent reflections was about, the nature of disability in heaven and the, sort of curing of any disability that will take place for all of our students. And that has just completely, profoundly changed my approach to this work and my relationship with my students as I view, them as how God created them and what God intends for them for eternity. So PI is an excellent program, 10 out of 10 recommend. Thank you so much, Dr. Bonfiglio. And it looks like Isabel is up.
Hello, my name is Isabel Teixeira. I am the learning specialist at Our Lady of Fatima, and I am a graduate of PI 5, so not a current student, graduated back in 2022, I think it was. So I actually entered PI immediately following my participation in ACE Teaching Fellows. So I think my participation was unique in the sense that I had gone through an alternative licensure program, so I'm sure in all of our schools we are encountering more and more teachers taking that alternative licensure route. And I was also a novice teacher, so it was only in my second year. So I by no means was an expert teacher, didn't have a ton of years in the field, and I was primarily motivated to join the program because I felt that in my first 2 years of teaching general ed, my heart was in the right place, and I really wanted to develop this inclusive classroom, and my intentions were so good, but I just didn't know how. And when we talk about what you need for inclusion, you need the attitude and the disposition, but you also need the skills, and I just didn't have those skills. So that was my primary motivation for joining the program. In my first year of the program, I actually took a new position as the learning specialist at Fatima. So as I was going through the coursework, I was also uncovering for myself how to be a learning specialist in a Catholic school. So my participation was really concurrent with learning as I went in my first year on the job. And to that end, as some of the other participants have mentioned, the professional community I was able to tap into was so huge for my success in my first year at Fatima. I was able to talk to other learning specialists, see how they did things, try to implement some of those systems in my school. One of my most impactful experiences was being paired with a school principal in Chicago, and just kind of tapping into her knowledge as a school leader at an inclusive school for things that I could be doing at my school to implement some of those systems, which was really important. Looking back on the experience now, I think one of the biggest gifts of participating in the program has been being able to share some of my knowledge with the community at Fatima and trying to infuse some of those inclusive dispositions and skills with the other teachers has been really impactful, and definitely credit that to the exposure that I got in the program, as well as the professional relationships that I formed during the program, but also after, because still definitely keep in touch with some people.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your experiences and wonderful takeaways from being a part of the program. I did just want to take a few minutes to ask questions. If any of you that have been through the program think, wow, this was a question I definitely asked while I was in the discernment period, and it was really, a question that you think other teachers would have, I'd love to hear those. But I do see in some of the questions we got submitted, how can schools work with Fire Foundation of Denver to be able to fund this work? Is that possible? So I wanted to start by answering that question myself, which is you absolutely can. Our grant application opens on January 8th. And this is something that we absolutely love to see in our grant applications and are happy to fund for schools to be able to help send their teachers through this program. In that same vein, we also have a partnership in the coming years with, as a national organization with fire affiliates across the country through the Lilly Endowment, has given us a grant that will include scholarships to PI. So even more funding available. But all that to say, we're very supportive of this program and are happy to fund teachers that are looking to further their education in this area. Another question I see, Christie, for you is just, thinking about, I know you touched on what the sort of timeline looks like going through this program, but what is the coursework load like when you're in those asynchronous courses throughout the school year? What is that like?
Well, I think that's a loaded question as our folks are turning in their final capstones next week, and and we're wrapping up the fall semester. But I would say what we have tried really intentionally to do at PI is to front end and back end. So as we look at the credit numbers across the entire programming, summer 1 is 5 credits. We have just 1 course in fall and spring. They're both for 4 credit courses. Then we have 5 credits in the second summer. And we've really tried to make sure that we have front-ended with some content that is necessary, but also time commitment during the summer months when I know you all deserve rest and time with family, but it does afford us some time to get some additional training in place so that by the time you get back into your classrooms, the fall and spring seem a little bit more manageable, especially when it comes to the way we integrate some of the practices, some of the strategies, the assessments, the assignments. We want you working with your own students. So we're not asking you to go out and do frivolous types of assignments. We want things that seem to be really pragmatic.
Great. Another question, what is an asynchronous course like? I know for many people, I know when I went to graduate school, it was the first time I'd ever done an asynchronous course, and it's different.
Well, you know what? I think this is something that I'm most proud of. We are in PI 7 right now, and I think we have been very intentional about practicing what we preach. So we do practice universal design for learning, and I hope when folks get on an asynchronous course, we open 1 week at a time so that folks aren't working way ahead of the other professional learning community. But we open 1 week at a time. We try to ensure that we have videos and we have readings, and we may have website exploration, and we have activities, and there are a lot of different things to engage content. As was pointed out, we also try for our capstones. I tried to make sure that I give some choice. So we're working asynchronously across the week, but you're working with professional learning communities. And then we have these bouts of synchronous sessions where we check in, not just with our peace communities for community building and spirituality, but we do Q&A with our capstones, and we make sure that we try to check in synchronously, and we also record in case you can't make it, but so that we have multiple touch points happening at all times. So asynchronous isn't just read a chapter in a textbook, take a quiz, turn in a paper. We have tried to really diversify what we're doing online so folks feel like there are lots of options and hopefully getting ideas for their own classrooms.
It's great. Thank you, Christie.
I'll add
Yeah.
something to that, Kyle. So in these asynchronous sessions too, you think, or at least initially I thought, was it going to be like these dry, maybe sort of boring videos that I have to watch? And I'm telling you, I feel like I know these people. I laugh at their jokes. I'm like interacting with the screen. So they've got a good crew that keeps it entertaining, and you really want to be involved. You want to absorb more of it.
Great. Awesome. Well, any other questions that have come to mind for any of our other folks on the call? Great. Well, then I'll just close with one more question, which is just one final reminder of any deadlines that folks should be aware of if you're looking to maybe even apply for this next cohort and try to put that in your Fire Foundation of Denver grant application.
Absolutely. So applications open October 1st. As I indicated, we do have quite a few people in the queue already. We are very excited about the anticipation of what those numbers could look like for this Pi 8 cohort. We are extending applications through March 1st. And then we will be reviewing everyone's application. So an application would require that you fill out the online form, you get a principal recommendation or reference. Basically, we want to make sure your building principals are saying, yes, we will support you, we will allow you to try some strategies, etc. And so we want to make sure you feel wrapped around as you participate in the program. So it's typical things like transcripts and some essays, etc. But we really think we're trying to find a well-rounded application, but then also doing March 1st, folks will be notified by April 1st, and then we want folks to commit by April 15th of this year so we can get you enrolled. First classes start next May, about the third week of May, so it comes up really quickly.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for giving your time, and I know this is going to be a great resource for teachers here in our Archdiocese. And before we close, I just would love for us to join in prayer and thanksgiving for this opportunity. In the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity and the gift of the Notre Dame Pi program, for the gift of teachers who are saying yes to inclusive Catholic education, for the gift of all your children and all your learners. I pray, Lord, that we would meet them where they are, and that more teachers would seek out the opportunity to meet young people where they are in their journey to know, love, and serve you. Amen. In the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you all so much.